Uncle Dan.
Hey, Uncle. Oh my. Oh no, we don't know what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
It's all
Jinx.
very-
I don't know what to think now because I when I look to the skies, I want to know why something is happening, why a thing is happening.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's for science to decide.
No. Heavenly phenomena are the exclusive purview of the religion
Yes.
world.
Well, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and like Uncle Dan said in the last segment, anywhere there's a gap in our understanding, religion is there to take a stab at it.
And stab they will.
And they get pretty stabby. In this podcast, we've covered various versions of sun gods, moon gods, water gods, wind gods. Basically, any natural phenomenon for which there wasn't an explanation by science yet was ascribed to a god or an attribute of a god.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if you saw the photo of evangelicals on the beach in Florida the other day praying away the hurricane, when, of course, they could have just nuked it,
Yeah.
you can realize we are still a pretty stupid species.
Yeah.
But I was just up in the Great White North with Uncle Mark, and we went to visit a pretty great museum on Vancouver Island with an outstanding First Nations exhibit. I liked it better than Mark did.
What? I liked it fine. Please don't do this to me. I liked it fine.
Uncle Mark is racist.
It got me thinking about a celestial phenomenon that is not shared among cultures around the world and is weirdly only common among cultures in the far, far north and the far, far south of our little planet. This phenomenon must have been equal parts awe-inspiring and terrifying to those who didn't understand what was happening. And now, of course, we have a completely fleshed-out scientific explanation. That's right, today we'll be talking about the gods of the Aurora, both Borealis and Australis.
Ooh.
Yeah. So what I'd like to do first is discuss some of the various myths and legends about the auroras from the peoples from southern Australia to northern Canada and Russia, and then talk about what they actually are and see which one of these explanations really curls your toes.
I've got a prediction.
Yeah.
I think I know which one I'm going to like.
Yeah, it's a safe bet. The aurora themselves are only regularly visible within roughly 250 kilometers, 2,500 kilometers radius around the northern and southern magnetic poles. In the south, that means that the Aurora Australis has been witnessed mostly by penguins and occasionally by humans in southern Tasmania, southern New Zealand, Tierra del Fuego, and Patagonia. In the north, this radius includes parts of Norway, Russia, Greenland, Canada, and Alaska.
Right.
Their appearance outside of these zones is rare enough that in a lot of cases, generations would pass between sightings. So little to no legends of the aurora are found in, say, the Polynesian culture, the Aztec, the Aztec and Mayan cultures, Middle Eastern, Southeast Asian, or African cultures, and most of the Great Plains cultures in North America. However, as we've talked about a lot in this podcast, there's a lot of cross-pollination going on amongst ancient cultures, and although rarely seen, some legends about the aurora made it down well outside or up outside of where they are visible.
Interesting.
Yeah. However, in the South Australian, Northern North American, Northern European, and Siberian cultures, there's a whole lot of ore to mine.
Yeah.
Needless to say that these cultures have very little in common, but one thing they did have in common was an insane light show, especially in wintertime, that lit up the night sky with eerie purple, blue, and green ribbons.
I really want to see it sometime.
I've never seen it.
I've never seen it,
No.
and it would be worth it to me to make a trip to Finland or Iceland or somewhere.
I've seen it very faintly one time.
Northern Norway apparently is kind of the best place to go because you can. It's way up there.
Yeah.
But it's also Norway, so it's awesome.
I want to go to one of those places that has the
Fucking Norway.
the domes. Have you seen these?
No.
You sleep in a clear dome.
Oh, very cool.
And all night you've got a view of the sky. And
That's
whatnot.
awesome. Well, here we go. So like my proctologist always says, let's start at the bottom and work our way up.
It's a very Kellogg direction to go in, but let's do it.
Yeah, I know.
Many Aboriginal tribes in Australia had myths about the aurora, mostly centering around fire. The Guntijmara people, nailed it, called them Puebue, or ashes, while the Ngarrindjeri people thought they were campfires of the spirits in the land of the dead.
Okay.
Now, just because something is ancient, don't mean it's woke. And in many of these cultures, only male elders were permitted to watch and interpret the aurora.
What?
So wait, did they make the ladies look away?
Apparently, they're not supposed to look at it.
Don't look.
Moving north, the words aurora boreas are actually Greek, meaning winds of the sunrise, and was coined by Galileo himself.
Well, he wasn't too far off the mark, was he?
No.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, a couple cultures kind of got somewhat close to some interesting ideas, but obviously nowhere near what the truth is. But, Galileo was closer to the 40th parallel, and if the aurora are regularly visible that far south, that's not very good for life on the planet Earth.
No.
Northern Asian tribes believed that the aurora were celestial battles between good and evil dragons that breathed fire across the firmament. That's pretty cool.
Sounds right.
In North America, here is a very incomplete list of the tribes and their legends. The Cree Indians believed the aurora were spirits in mourning because they were apart from their loved ones. The Algonquins believed that there was a fire built by Nanabozo, their creator, signaling that
I love Nanabozo.
That is an
I don't know
unfortunate
anything
name
about
for a creator god.
that is my new everything.
Much further north, many Inuit tribes believe the aurora were the spirits of the dead playing a ball game that they used a walrus skull as the ball.
Because obviously.
Right.
It just feels like you get those tusks in and suddenly it's rolling funny.
Exactly. The tribes of Nunavik Island had it reversed, believing that the aurora were spirit walruses playing with the skull of some poor human.
I like that better.
That's it's an improvement. The Dene people came interestingly close to hitting on something, believing that there was some relationship between the aurora and the sparks produced when stroking caribou fur. Now, not really related, but getting there.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's got a whole static electricity thing going
There you
on.
go. Unsurprisingly, aurora featured into Norse mythology, and they were either light reflecting off the armor of the Valkyrie, a fire that surrounded the ocean, or even that glaciers stored sunlight during the long summer and it leaked back out into the universe in darkness.
I love all of those. I love all
great.
of those.
It's a glacier light fart.
Yeah, like like most things Norse, it's just cool.
Yeah.
Sightings in Europe were very rare, but were generally seen as a bad sign, particularly because auroras seen that far south were mostly red, which is way too complicated to go into why. Just a few weeks before the French Revolution broke out, the sky was said to have blazed red, and given what was about to happen, I would say that was an apt omen. For a little more color, and the color is most definitely red, on that subject, we touched on it in episode 95. In 1862, during the night after the Battle of Fredericksburg, in which the Confederacy fairly kicked the shit out of the Union, aurora were clearly visible over the battlefield. Confederate soldiers took it to mean that God was on their side, and since it was the God of the Bible, they were right.
Well, God was on their side. I mean, you can't say God was on their side because they lost in the end. So I feel like that was God just fucking with them.
Well, that night they won. That was it was the most lopsided defeat for the Union of the war.
Right, but you have to. Here's the thing about signs from God: you have to go back and reinterpret them when you have more information. So
Yeah,
Right.
it's
Now we can
better
look at
after
that.
the fact, isn't it?
now we can look at that and know for sure that God was just being like, "This is wrong. Fuck it."
So, now that we've talked about the various rather pedestrian explanations of indigenous peoples, let's talk about what the aurora actually are. The short answer is that they are disturbances in the magnetosphere caused by solar wind.
Boo, nerd.
The longer answer is that the giant ball of molten nickel spinning thousands of kilometers beneath our feet produces a huge magnetic field that extends tens of thousands of kilometers out into space, and which shields us from the constant bombardment of charged particles being hurled at us by a sun that clearly wants us dead.
No.
Were it not for this invisible shield, the atmosphere would have long ago eroded away, and complex cellular life would probably not have formed. These charged particles, called the solar wind, traveling between 200 and 1,000 kilometers a second, slam into the magnetosphere of the Earth, slide along the magnetic belts until they coalesce at the two magnetic poles. These ionized protons and electrons were crammed together at the poles. They emit light energy, and that's what we see as the auroras. And just to be clear, I am not a scientist, so I probably mucked that all up.
No, you did because you didn't even mention the walruses and the skull.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like that is all bullshit. Everything you just said.
And just to layer on a little bit more of the awe and the wonder of the true explanation, in the last several years, non-terrestrial auroras have been observed. Hubble observed them on Jupiter and Saturn, and Cassini and Galileo observed them on Uranus and Neptune.
Nice.
While Saturn's are the most like ours, the ones over Jupiter are way cooler. Jupiter's gravity is constantly squeezing its moon Io, which makes it the most volcanically active body in our solar system. And the charged particles from those eruptions, along with the solar wind, create Jupiter's aurora.
Oh.
Wow.
And auroras have been observed as well on Europa and Ganymede, which orbit Jupiter, as well as faint ones over Venus and Mars. And there's even been an extrasolar aurora discovered over a brown dwarf called LSR J88 plus 3259 that are 1 million times brighter than the auroras of Earth.
Well, that's just too bright.
Yeah.
So now you've taken it too
think-
far.
I didn't know that walruses had spread out over such great distances in the universe. I
Exactly.
think this is pretty
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, for thousands of years, the best thing that we could come up with to explain the auroras was walrus hockey.
Which is great.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's the winner for me. That's what I'm going with.
So, yeah, I mean, it's such a beautiful phenomenon, and no wonder all the religions that witnessed it tried to come up with something.
Yeah.
But what a failure of imagination, especially with what they actually turned out to be, which we didn't know about till the 20th century.
You're saying that imagining guys, walruses or like glaciers releasing light, you're saying that's a failure of imagination?
I think so.
I think that's
I think it's a
brilliantly
testament to
imaginative.
imagination. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. But it's okay, Doug. It's not the first time you've been wrong on the air.
I love the idea that the molten ball beneath our feet is projecting a shield that's protecting us from an actual Death Star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice too, but it's not imaginative.
You know what? It is nice, isn't it? I like being alive. All right. Well, that is beautiful. And next time you look to the north or the south, you know that walruses are involved.
Yes, indeed.
All right.
Let's move along.